Welcome to episode 4 of this Adobe Express beginner's guide, getting you started with everything inside of Adobe Express. Now this tutorial is sponsored by Adobe Express. My name's Darren, I'm an Adobe Express ambassador, and today we're looking at getting started and creating your first design, and then also we're going to actually apply the brand kit that we created in the previous episode to our designs in there inside of Adobe Express. But let's get in and get started inside of Adobe Express. Now, as always on this series, we're starting off on the Adobe Express homepage, and what we want to do is we want to find a template that we want to save or we want to use. So what we can do is we can actually come down to templates and we can start searching for a template that we want to actually use based on the search options that we've already talked about. But I'm going to come over to my stuff. I've got a couple of templates that I've saved off here that I want to actually show you how we can actually use, and this is under our favorites area here. So I want to start off with this customer review template because it's a really good template to show you some really good techniques inside of Adobe Express. We're going to open that up just by clicking on it, then we can click on customize templates, and that's going to then open it up in our design window. Now this isn't our first time looking at this area here. We've had a brief look at this beforehand, but we want to kind of like walk you through where we are first of all inside of this area. So we're going to come up here. We can see we've actually got our file option up here. We can convert this, we can start new files, we can translate, download, we can look at safe zones, which we're going to look at in the future, and we can also click to go back home, and then we can also turn on the safe zones. Now these safe zones are really good, and we're going to come onto those when we look at scheduling our content in the future, but I just wanted to let you know that those are there, and also the rulers and grids, those are also in here. So I'm just going to turn those off for a moment so that they're not distracting whilst we're walking through this tutorial. But we can also come up here, you can see we've got a cloud up here. That just goes to show that that's actually saving for us automatically. We've got this is actually showing as an untitled item. Now you can double click in here, and that's where you can actually rename the file. We can also come over to edit page on here, and we can actually see up here we can actually add our page title here. So this is our page title, the other one's a file title. So we're going to call this review square. Okay, and you can see here it still says untitled up here, but that's because that's a different thing. This is our file name and this one's our page name. The two are different because you can have multiple sized pages inside of the same file name. So we're going to call this our review templates. If I can spell review, that would be lovely. Okay, we're going to click save, and that's now going to save and add that up here. So we can see if we come back to the home page on here, just click on the home page, we can see here it's now under our recent files. Now we can choose to, as we've said beforehand, move this to a different area. We can show location, or we can, if we click on show location, we can then choose to actually move this item here. We can actually click on here, and then we can actually move this to a folder, or if we wanted to, let's say we had a folder here we wanted to drag it to, you can just drag and drop it over on here. But we're actually going to design and edit this template today. Now if we wanted to, we could turn on the AI assistant, and that's going to make our life a lot easier. We can then start talking through and actually adding options in, or describing options or edits that we want to do in here. We can do that. I've got a video about that on my channel. If you want to know about that, check out the rest of the playlist. It'll be in there for you. I'm going to turn this off for now because we don't want to add in there the AI assistant and start talking through. I want to show you how to actually edit a template inside of the design window here. So we've got our kind of like layers down the side here, and this is where we can move things up and down. Now we can, and on here we can actually click and multiple select. I'm holding down the command key, so you can see here I'm actually multiple selecting just by selecting from down the side here, and then if we want to click away we can do, and that's going to allow us to do that. We can then move these up and down, so if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to move this down below something, we can do, and you can see there that it's actually dropping that down below other layers. Now in here we've got all sorts of other areas and our effects, but we want to kind of like actually apply our brand kit, and that's what I thought would be really useful first, is to actually look at the brand kit. So we're going to come over on the left hand panel here where we've got brands, and then we're going to switch to our brand kit. You can see here I've got my brand kit here selected, but I want a different brand kit, so I'm going to click back and we're going to click on the Adobe brand kit that we started looking at. Now we've got our logo, we've got all sorts of other fonts and graphics, and we can just simply click to apply our brand. But what we can do at the side here, you can see we've got this little cog here, a cog, sorry, not clog. We can choose to apply just our colors, we can choose to apply colors and fonts, and we can also choose to recolor graphics. So if there's a big graphic there that you want to recolor, you can do. I tend to like to kind of like apply my colors first to get the correct kind of like look. So we're going to click on apply brand. You can see as this is changing, you can keep clicking it and it's going to cycle through a few different options. Let's say this is the one we actually like to use on here. You can see now what we want to do is we want to actually add in an image of ourselves on here. So if we wanted to do that, we can come down to our graphics, and let's say we wanted to add in this item here. You can see we've got that. It's like, well, it doesn't just drag and drop into there. What we're going to do is we're going to actually click and select on here, and we're going to click on replace. Now this is where it allows us to kind of like either choose from the photos or from our brands. We're going to click on our brands, and this is where we can then click and view our brand kit, and we're going to select this item here. And now I want to make this image a little bit bigger. I want to be the person that's in this, I want to make them a little bit bigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually double click on this, and then this item, we want to actually drag that out to make this person a little bit bigger inside of the area there. Now that's how we can actually replace the elements in here. We've applied our brand kit. All of these items here, you can see these ones here are grouped. So you can see if we click on one of them in the middle, you can see it will move about. So I'm going to click undo on that. If we actually click the outside of the border and then move it, it's actually going to move this group around. And that's why if you wanted to, you could choose to ungroup them. You can see that that then actually separates those all out for you. But we can start coming in here, and let's say we want to edit this text. So we can select the actual text area here, and that's where we can then be able to select a different font if we wanted to. You can see we've got all sorts of different fonts from our brand kit, but we want to change the brand kit. We want to have the Adobe Coffee brand kit, and that's where we can then be able to select our Adobe Coffee brand kit template text. We can still come in here and we can change this to a different kind of like weighting if we wanted to, change the size, change it from bold to italic to underline. We can also link this if we wanted to something else. We can align center, left, right, etc. We can do all of that in here. And we can then also, if we wanted to, choose bullet points. We've got more where we can change the letter spacing, the line spacing, and the paragraph. And also we can change it from lower to uppercase as well, using that option there under the three dots. Now if we wanted to, we can add an outline to this, so we can add an outline thickness. We don't have one at the moment, but we could add one on there. And you can see now what that's done is it actually put these two color palette options in here. If we want to, we can swap those around. We can actually just choose which way around we want to have those. We've also got different text layouts. So we've got a dynamic text layout. So it's going to actually kind of like fill or change the size of one word or other words to actually change and fill the box in there. But we've also got other text layouts on here, and we've also got a text flow option, which I'll come on to in a future video on this channel. We can also on here, we can rewrite. We're going to come on to that one when we start looking at the AI features, but that's a really cool option. We can then choose and change the position. So let's say we want to make sure that this is centered. I can tell from now that that's not quite centered, but if I click on center, it's actually going to take that text box and make sure it's in the center for us. We can also put it in the middle, so it's now in the center and the middle, but actually I just want to make sure it's centered where it was. Now, a couple of other things that I wanted to mention inside of the panel here, especially where we've got the text selected, we can actually get recommended fonts. So it's going to actually look at our design and actually start recommending fonts for us based on the elements that are actually inside of our design. So as we add elements, if it's a particular kind of like look and feel, it'll actually start recommending fonts for us. And also we can change the opacity of these, and that comes on a little bit different when we start adding an element or an image. So we can come over to add up here. Let's say we want to add a photo. Let's say we want to have a paper effect over the top. So I'm going to add a paper texture. I'm going to wait for that to just pop up. So we'll see here, I can add in the paper effect here. You can see, well, this isn't going to help, but what we can do here is we can actually come over to the opacity and we can choose to add multiply on this. And what this is going to then do is actually add that in here, and it'll remove the whites. If we choose on here and we choose screen, it'll actually remove the blacks. And we can then change the opacity of this. I'm going to choose multiply and then drag that over, and if we drag this down above here, we can see that that actually starts making it look like it's got a paper effect on there. Really cool effect. I really like that one, but I wanted to just show you that, and that's where we can then start, as I say, adding content on here. We've got our media, our elements, and we've also got our AI options here. We've also down the left hand side here, we've got this new panel here for this month, which I've just noticed. And that is a styles. So we've got recommended styles. So it'll actually look at our design here and it'll recommend our design for our, it's got our brand template up here. We can change and select a different brand template. So it's going to actually apply our style here. That's another way we can actually start applying our brand kit. But if you wanted to have a look at this for, say, a different client or in a different style, we can start applying and changing that. And you can see as we actually tick on this, you can see up here, it'll allow us to actually shuffle the colors, which is really helpful. We can also choose to add in and see what the colors are and the titles and the texts and the fonts and etc. all in there. We can also, if we wanted to, just look at the colors. So if we wanted to keep the same fonts but we wanted to apply different colors, we can actually apply those different colors to our template or our kit here, if you like, whatever, our design. So we can also look at the fonts from the styles menu. So we can start looking down here and adding in all of those different text styles. So if we wanted something a little bit more official, in fact, that might be what the review actually might have had originally, but we can start applying any of those we wanted to. I'm just undoing them as I apply them, which is why they then ping back. But that's getting started with your first design inside of Adobe Express and how you can then edit those with the fonts and editing the images, replacing images and all of those good things. If you've got any questions on this or any of the other modules in this series, drop them down in the comments below. In the next episode, we're going to be looking at the AI features inside of Adobe Express. It's not one that you're going to want to miss. So if you haven't already, click like and subscribe down below and we'll make sure that we get that for you in the next couple of days. If you've watching this in the future, I'll already be putting a link to those down in the description for you as well, and also all over on my website if you want to check out the rest of the series and any other updates that we're doing to this series inside of Adobe Express. And until next time, thank you very much and bye for now.